Hi, Michelle Florendo here, and welcome to Ask a Decision Engineer. Listen in and learn how to untangle big decisions with less stress and more clarity. Sometimes you'll face decisions that have so many moving parts, it's hard to know where to start. But even people who are familiar with decision-making frameworks like decision trees can still get tripped up. In today's episode, we'll listen in on someone who's facing a complex decision, talk about what makes decision-making hard, even for smart people, and share tips on how you can untangle your next big decision. I have to credit my friend Robert for being the one who convinced me to start this podcast. Though I spend many coaching sessions helping people through complex decisions, I was skeptical whether anyone would be open to having a decision analysis conversation recorded and shared with the world. So Robert volunteered to be my first recorded interviewee. I told him to let me know when he had a big, messy decision he needed help with. A few weeks later, I got a text asking to set up a call. One thing I have to tell you about Robert is that he's a smart guy. Like, really smart. He studied mechanical engineering at Caltech and began his career in the aerospace industry. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, Robert is a rocket scientist from one of the most exclusive engineering institutions in the world. Now, he's a serial entrepreneur who enjoys complex problems. His current company has set a goal to double their business this year, which would require securing additional space for operations. Here's a bit of what he was facing.
And there's a building about 3 blocks from our place. So I've been driving past it, but they had this weird thing where you couldn't go see it. And they're like, if we haven't accepted an approved offer, then you can see it. It doesn't cost you anything to like make an offer on a building. And so it's like, well, I guess I could do that. And so anyways, I put in an offer and we ended up winning. And so we're in escrow on this building. So there's these complexities around it. There's all sorts of weirdness with it. Like, and it's like this weird, it's a residential zone, but it's commercial. And like, they were making us make all cash offers, which I technically could like write a check for that, but I need to get that money back. So it's like, how can I transact in cash and then have someone refinance it? There's another thing. So they don't have a lease with this tenant. And because it's a residential broker, instead of doing like the commercial broker, commercial real estate transaction form, they did the residential broker, commercial real estate form. They did a car form instead of an air form.
Robert continued on, providing more details on the situation. His company needs more space to expand operations, and there happens to be an available building nearby that he's interested in purchasing. But there are all these other factors involved. There are funding constraints, zoning weirdness, a current tenant, required inspections and reports, and other complexities. When I'm helping people untangle messy decisions, often the first thing that I have them do is really identify what are the decisions that need to be made. In other words, what are the things that they can control? And what are the things that they can't? When I asked Robert about this, there are a couple things that came up.
Yeah, so I guess I had this decision that I need to make by Tuesday of
So
whether
decision is around what path to take with respect to funding,
or whether I should just proceed with like I might have to proceed without some of the sort of legal certainties that would be ideal.
There was also this piece.
There was a lot of preamble. It looks like we're running across like an annoying broker. So we need to have an inspection done tomorrow. And he's like, hasn't reached out to the tenant to ask if we can have access. And he's like, I didn't even know you needed access to be able to do that. Well, you do. That's why we've been asking for it. So it seems like there's an idiot standing between me and something I want. Mm-hmm. So now I have the decision of how to manage this person who's standing between me and something that I want without taking on undue risk.
Bingo. I was beginning to see just why Robert brought this particular decision to our call, for me to help him untangle. In my line of work, I encounter a lot of people who are fully capable of making big decisions in their daily work, and often are responsible for making decisions that may be worth millions of dollars. Over the years that I've been helping people untangle big decisions, I've found that there are two key things that make decisions really hard, even when you're really smart. And those are, 1, uncertainties, and 2, emotions. Let's start with the emotional piece. I could hear a twinge of frustration as Robert was talking about his interactions with the agent. And so I started asking him questions to try to get to the bottom of that. Ultimately, it was getting on his nerves that there was a person who he couldn't control standing between him and what he wanted. And so we tried talking about, well, what is it that he could actually control in this situation? So you named the decision of like how to deal with the fact that you have annoying agent who's not doing stuff. And then there's the, do I move forward? And I'm assuming move forward, like proceed, write the check, and then you figure out how to get the money back later.
Right. Because like to me, it's not actually a decision about whether I want this building. I want the building.
Yeah.
Like it makes the investment I've already made like way more strategic and helpful, and all these sorts of other things. So I want this building. I'm getting it for a decent price. It's right down the street, and it's whatever. It's going to be great. So I guess the initial decision is, do I just want to let the agent annoy me, or do I want to choose to not let him annoy me? That feels like the first decision, actually, because I could just be self-righteous and be like, this guy's an idiot and I'm mad. And I can still think those things, but then I can say, but I'm not going to let him stand between me and my goal, which is to have a clean and simple transaction for this building, because it doesn't need to be complicated, because they want to sell it and I want to buy it. And so given that, because I'm probably choosing that route, is how to minimize its annoyingness and not put me in a position where I have like unnecessary risk that I've taken on because I didn't want to be annoyed by him.
I think it's interesting that you realize there's like the framing decision.
This is the framing decision for sure.
Especially if, the point of this is how do you make this decision less hairy and annoying? And so first off, how do you frame one of the really annoying pieces differently?
Right. And I can thank my mom for that, actually, when we were buying that other house, because she was the other agent and she's the buyer. So she was like super emotional about it and super upset about it. And I could be more detached because it's like, I'm not going to live there. Like I want her to live there because it's not the end of my street. And so I just got to be like, well, so I got to reframe it from my point of view, where it's like, well, yeah, you can be all pissed off about it, but does it change whether we want to buy that house or not? So I got to help practice framing these. So it's like, oh, what did I say to my mom? She was getting all worked up. And it's like, oh, well, do I still want to buy this place? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that simplifies things a lot.
Okay.
Right.
Now, when it comes to uncertainties, often there can be a little bit of fear or apprehension about the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if this really bad thing happens? And again, it's useful to focus on what is it that you can control and what is it that you can't. You may not be able to control the outcome, but you can control how you respond. So we spent some time working through the scenarios to understand what would be the actions that Robert would take if various scenarios played out.
To be able to get the long-term sort of financing that I want from the SBA, I more or less need 3 things. I need to do this phase 1 environmental report that they're supposed to have the inspection for tomorrow. I need to have an appraisal of the building for some amount of value that's like remotely close to how much of the loan I want. And I need to get that tenant out of there at some point. in the relatively near future. So those are the 3 things that I need to be able to do. Yeah. So I guess if like this place was a dry cleaners or something once upon a time, then I won't be able to get a loan for it from the SBA.
Okay.
So I'd have to go get a loan from somebody else, some other sort of commercial loan. So that doesn't seem that bad. If I just proceed without getting the estoppel from the tenant, I might not ever be able to get rid of the tenant. That's the most extreme scenario of that. Like, there's no lease in place, and so I guess I could just call the sheriff and stuff on this like sweet old man. It's just not my style at all. But like, yeah, like I don't think that there's an indefinite amount of time where he would stay there. But I wouldn't have any sort of in paper agreement from him that he would leave before I purchase the thing. And that's also assuming that I guess one of the branches in my decision tree is, do I go through the agent or do I go direct to the tenant? Right. Yeah. And I kind of, this email was triggering to me, but it doesn't really, I wouldn't have had that report before my contingencies ran out on Tuesday anyways. So it hasn't actually changed my decision making path at all. Like this new information, didn't change anything other than that the report that he makes might not be good enough to satisfy the SBA, who I don't have enough time to allow to fund this thing anyways, necessarily. If the seller and agent isn't cool and doesn't give me an extra 20 days. So that's helpful. I had to think about it too. Yeah, it didn't really. So kind of, I get that news maybe just put me back to, okay, I'm not going to try to negotiate with the selling agent. Like, there's a deal that's been defined. Mm-hmm. It's all cash with things going away on Tuesday and then closing on March 11th. And if I do that, the building's mine. It'll have a tenant in it, and I won't have any clarity on when they'll leave. And how I ultimately finance it will be TBD, but with like a variety of options. So, yeah, that doesn't seem scary at all. Thanks.
Yes, decisions can be messy, they can be complex, and they can be difficult. But if you know how to start untangling them, it becomes easier to move through them with more ease and clarity. First off, if you have a situation where there's just a lot of different things going on, first step is to identify what are the things that you can control and what are the things that you can't. Or, said another way, what are the decisions that you can actually make? And what are the uncertainties that you may need to write out? It's also useful to acknowledge what emotions are coming up. Is there fear, apprehension, frustration, anger? And what's behind those feelings? And again, once you're able to identify where those things are coming from, what is it that you can decide to do? How might you take action? Lastly, if there are uncertainties involved, think about, well, what are the different scenarios that may come into play? And if those things were to happen, what would you then decide to do? Reclaim your agency in this situation.
Decisions don't have to be so difficult, as long as you focus on the parts that you can control and let go of the parts that you can't. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you know of someone who might benefit from learning more about decision making, send them a link to our website, askadecisionengineer.com. Also, the website is where you should go if you're interested in more resources on decision making, or if you would like to submit a question to potentially be answered on a future episode. Again, this is Michelle Florendo from Ask a Decision Engineer. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you on the next episode.